CHEK Podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Mike Check. My name is Paul Haysom. Of course, Mike Check is brought to you by Island Eye Care. Do your eyes itch, water, or burn? They certainly would if you got in a mix-up with Gino Odjick. Well, if they do, you call Island Eye Care today and you say goodbye to dry eye. But today we're talking about one of the toughest players to ever wear the Canucks jersey. He's also one of the most loyal and charismatic guys that you ever had the pleasure of meeting. Gino Odjick is the focus of a new book called Gino, The Fighting Spirit of Gino Odjick, which is coming out in October. And for any true hockey fan, it is a must read. Today, we're joined by the co-authors of the book, Patrick Johnston, a longtime sports writer for the Vancouver Province, and Peter Leech, the longtime best friend of Gino's. Thank you both for jumping on the show, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
So it's great to be here.
So, Peter, let's start with you. So I know it's been 2.5 years about since the passing of Gino. Why was now the right time to put this out?
Well, I mean, I think, for me, I think I took a little bit of a hiatus after Gino had passed. It was kind of a rough go for me for a good 6 months there, at least. Probably right after Gino passed, I lost my younger brother a month later. So I kind of really got beat up, mentally and emotionally and, spiritually for a little bit there. But yeah, I mean, we thought also give it a little time as well before we engaged with Patrick to, kind of get things going. But we've been at it for about a year, probably about a year now, eh, Patrick? I think.
Yeah.
About a year now, yeah, we gave it a little time, but it's been probably about a good year.
Wow. And I'm sorry you had to go through all that. That sounds horrific. But Patrick, I am interested when you jumped in, and I mean, obviously you're a longtime sports writer in the Vancouver market, but you must have wanted to jump at the opportunity to write about a legend like Gino.
Yeah, I'd never written a book before. It was certainly something that had
Nice.
been in my mind to do. But yeah, Peter approached me, about almost 2 years ago now. It was the fall of 2023. And then, we kind of got things rolling, and he approached a publisher, and we really got the ball rolling. And I think that first person I interviewed was Stan Smeel in June of 2024. And managed to sort of manage my way through it right after, obviously that fantastic Canucks playoff run.
Yeah.
And then into the season last year, and kind of was in a sprint trying to get most of it done by Christmas, and work with some fantastic editors and managed to grind it out and get it all finished and ready to be go by the end of February. It was quite the sprint, but quite the fun exercise. And as an author, I came out of it. I would say like it was mixed emotions. Like it was an exciting experience. I learned so much about Gino. But I left myself feeling a little bit sad that I hadn't got to know this guy better. He was a fascinating and brilliant person. So it was a true journey for me as an author. And obviously Peter's such a wonderful storyteller, and you knew Gino so well that there's so much of Peter's voice in this book. Like I handled the writing, but Peter helped figure out who we should put in, how we should tell it. Sometimes he would just tell me the story and I just write it down and went in the book that way.
Cool.
It was a great experience, an intense experience, but I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, it was really beautifully written. I've only read a small sample so far, but it's very real, it's very raw, but it's very Gino, which I think, Peter, is what Patrick's alluding to, really speaks volumes to you and how close you were with Gino. Let's talk about Gino a little bit and his story, and go back to Maniwaki, Quebec, growing up, playing hockey, living in the First Nation. How far back do we go in this book, Peter?
Probably when he was starting kind of his pre-teens, I guess, is when he really sort of took to hockey. I mean, I think he started skating when he was younger, but really didn't start taking to organized hockey until he was probably, to my understanding, about 12, 13 years old. And then it kind of just went from there with, he garnered a little bit of attention when he was about 14, 15.
Yeah.
But eventually got his first junior tryout, and it kind of went from there.
Very cool. And then Patrick, for you, I mean, obviously we know Gino so well from those early 90s days when he come blasts onto the scene and we're
Yeah.
Gino. Was it a little bit fun? I mean, you mentioned the highs and lows of writing this book. Was it a little bit fun to sort of rekindle that nostalgia again?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was 9 when Gino made his debut, and so I remember, like you, the Gino kind of
It's the
element,
best.
and the sort of course of the story, and for me, Peter's talked about at the beginning of his career, and organized hockey. I mean, his dad organized the team for
Right.
several years, and they went to the Quebec Pee Wee tournament. But it was sort of discovering that Gino, in some ways, was an accidental hockey player. He when he went down to Hawkesbury and on the suggestion of a family friend, and met Bob Hartley. Um, it wasn't clear to him that he was going to become a hockey player. He loved hockey. He really enjoyed it. His dad had been a highly talented hockey player in his youth, but it wasn't that this is what he was going to be. It was sort of one of those, he dreamed of becoming a hockey player, but he also dreamed of becoming a country singer, and he didn't know how to become either of those things. And so that was just a great thing, just to build the backstory of exactly that. Gino. I mean, we have a chapter where we called it, which one is Saddam, which is the sort of famous story
Wow.
very early on in Gino's rookie season, where it's the eve of the bombing of Iraq, and someone's holding it. Saddam Hussein's all over the news, and someone's in the stands saying, Gino's tougher than Saddam. And the story as it was told then was that Gino looked at the sign and turned to Stan Smeel and said, well, which one's Saddam? Referring to which one of the jets. And it sort of became this story that he clearly, I think Peter, we've talked about this, and I talked to Stan Smeel about this, and I think Gino just kind of let it become this story of, what does Gino know? He's just a small town kid who doesn't know anything. But that's ludicrous. Gino read the paper cover to cover every day. You couldn't get Gino away from the table until he was done reading the paper. And Stan, I asked Stan, did Gino know? Oh, Gino, and Stan just looked at me and goes, oh, he knew. I can see his face now, the grin on his face, because he was giggling to himself that this comparison was being made.
Oh, that's so good.
An absolute, just a fantastic, brilliant figure. I mean, that was some of the things. Peter knew him so well, but for me to talk to these players, teammates of his from that era, Trevor Linden, I've mentioned Stan, Cliff Ronning, Jeff Courtnall, all these guys, they all, their eyes light up when they were asked about Gino, what a teammate he was, how loyal he was, how this guy, the sort of role he played, the glue in that team. And one of the things that became clear to me as I was researching the whole thing and looking at how Pat Quinn was trying to change who the Vancouver Canucks were not just as a team, but as an organization. He wanted to find big, strong, fast guys, and Gino was exactly that. And in many ways, we talk about that March 91 trade that brought in Courtnall and Ronning and Robert Dirk and Sergio Momesso, which of course on ice made a huge difference.
Right.
But it's the drafting of Gino in 1990 that really is the turning point in that team that almost wins the Stanley Cup in 94. And of course, Gino was just a bit player in the 94 run, but the culture and the sort of motivation of that team, Gino's the first guy. And I put that to Trevor Linden. He said, you're absolutely right. Like, Gino's the first guy. He's the guy that comes in. Trevor's already on the team.
Right.
But it's Gino that brings in this new sort of mentality and this new way of playing. And of course, as I said, comes down the years, and all his teammates were just such massive fans of him as a result.
Yeah. You mentioned that twinkle in the eye. Like, he certainly had a bit of a twinkle in his eye too, because he's always a bit of a prankster and all that stuff. But Peter, I mean, going through this book and sort of rekindling those memories and that nostalgia for you, I mean, that must have even been cathartic when you're talking about just kind of coming to terms with his passing as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was. To be honest, we had, Patrick is well aware, we had certain moments, he and I together when we were talking about different things where, yes, it would get a little emotional for me in a sense. But just to elaborate what Patrick said, I remember talking with Pat Quinn about when Gino came to the Canucks, and I thought Pat put it very well. He brought life and character, to the room, to the team, and I thought that was well said by Pat. For saying that. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of like I said, mixed emotions at different times. But I've always, I've been seeking a friend, a counselor friend of mine, after Gino passed, because, it was, I did. I mean, what it came to me, it kind of really confronted me big time. Where we did so much together. It was just uh, when he passed, I kind of felt lost. To be honest with you, I mean, I
Mhm.
remember having this conversation with my wife, and she just says, you lost your shoe, didn't you?"
Hmm.
In a sense. And I said, yeah, kind of, I mean, it's kind of how it was in a sense, because we did so much together. And but I mean, it was part of a little of blessing as well, in a sense, because we found out some health issues after he passed that brought even sort of more light to the issue of things like CTE.
Mhm.
With Gino, there was a good chance that he probably could have had it, but the doctors are telling me that probably within a 3-year span, he would have had full on Alzheimer's,
Wow.
at a young age. And, so who knows, right? I mean, who knows where we would have been at today, if he was still alive. But, I still would have been there, helping him out. That's just what we had with each other.
Yeah, you were very loyal to Gino. I know he loved you very much, but it's amazing too. Like loyalty seems to be a word that kind of keeps coming up around Gino, from teammates to just people he didn't know to anyone. Like he was such a loyal guy. I mean, we saw that with his relationship with Pavel Bure, right? Like I know Peter, you're always going to be his best bud, but like him and Pavel, they were inseparable for those years too. And Patrick, that must be cool to kind of go down that memory lane as well.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with Pavel and we talked about that. One of the things that stood out, and it's a story that actually belongs to Donald Odette, another
Yeah.
former teammate of his, an old friend of his, and I talked to Donald about it. And Donald pointed it out, which was that Gino's loyalty was so deep to those that he cared about. Was he would look after you even if you weren't on the same team. So there was a story early in Donald's career. Basically, he got injured by a defenseman who I think was playing for the Oilers at the time, named by Craig Muni, who basically hit Donald, knocked Donald out for the season. Donald hurt his knee, and I guess the next game, basically when the Canucks went up against Edmonton, Gino took a run at Muni and basically said, you hurt my friend. This is for my friend. And
Wow.
Muni told Donald this they ended up as teammates a couple seasons later, and he said that. And then there's the story, that we actually found the photo of it. It's a kind of remarkable photo. Early in Pavel Bure's career, they're on the same team. The defenseman from the Kings, Peter Ahola, basically takes some liberties with Pavel, and Gino got in his face and said, "You don't do that." And that would happen down the years. I mean, it would happen. Pavel obviously ends up playing in Florida. Gino's playing for the Islanders or the Flyers, and someone took a run at Pavel, and Gino followed up the next time that he was playing. There was a real deep sort of loyalty to those that he cared about. And as Peter will tell you, I mean, that he cared about almost everyone. And the only people he didn't care about, people who weren't good to him, right?
Yeah.
If you were good to him, Gino would reward that. I mean, I have the story in the book, and I've told Peter this a few times, but very early on in my time fully covering the Canucks, I think it was sort of fall of 2019.
Yeah.
I arrive at Rogers Arena, I come up the elevator. I'm turning the corner to go down the press box, and there's Peter and Gino coming the other way down this narrow hallway. And in my head, okay, you remember there's Gino, but you're a professional. And it's one of those ones where it's just a split second, but it feels like it's forever. And you have all these and I'm getting ready to serve. Oh yeah, hey Gino, good to see you again. My name, you may remember, my name's Patrick. Before I could say anything, Gino sticks his hand out and he goes, "Patrick, so great to see you again." And I'm
Oh,
sitting here
wow.
thinking, I've talked to this guy once, twice,
Yeah.
but that's how he was. Ed Willis
Yeah.
told me the story. Ed obviously covered hockey forever, but Ed said that when he was still in Winnipeg covering the Jets for the Winnipeg Sun, the Canucks would come through, and Gino would, "Oh hey Ed, how you doing?" And he would have some anecdote. The clue he remembered who Ed was before Ed had said anything. And when Ed told me this, he said, "Well, I don't know whether maybe he remembered me from covering a Memorial Cup or something." I said,
Wow.
"No, Ed, that's just how he was. He just remembered everybody, and he just had this incredible ability to keep track of people." And I mean, it's no surprise he ended up becoming so involved and so as sort of like an Indigenous leader, consulting with so many people. It's no surprise that he and Peter had such a success counseling youth.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy that listened, he cared about those around him, and he never forgot anything.
Yeah, and that's really well said, Patrick, because I had the experience of getting to play with the Canucks alumni when I was over in Vancouver. And I think we were on a bus trip up to Squamish, first ever game, and I'm scared out of my mind because obviously these are all the legends I grew up watching. And I got onto the bus, and there's Peter and Gino sitting up at the front, and both of them just couldn't have been nicer, more welcoming, asking me questions about me, and it always sat with me. I'm like, this guy is the real deal, and he wasn't just doing that, he was interested, and it meant the world. But it was amazing because we would go on tours and like up to Peter, you'll have to Smithers, thank you. So we're up in Smithers, and there was a lineup, I want to say, of maybe 200 people and a lot of Indigenous kids and grown-ups and of all ages, and he really mattered to the Indigenous community years after he was off the ice. And Peter, how much is that in the book, and how important is that to kind of carry on that Indigenous legacy as well?
Oh no, we touched on his the work that he's done in Indigenous communities, his involvement in political aspects with Indigenous. I mean, like I've been mentioning to Gino, what made Gino very rich, it was his reputation in Indigenous country.
Yeah.
And that's what made him very rich. I mean, he was highly respected and right across the country. And the work that we did with the youth, we kind of viewed it as almost like medicine for us as well.
Cool.
It really helped us as much as we kind of were trying to help influence and change their lives in a positive way. And I think that what really affected Gino in a lot of the communities that we visited throughout the country was that when we see a lot of poverty, and that severely affected him. Well, it affected me as well, but it really affected him. I mean, we gave a prime example with this. We always usually, when we went to a community, we always kind of hooked up with one kind of youth or young person that we kind of shared a lot of time with for a couple of days there. And this one young one, he's probably about 11, 12 years old. He was having lunch with us, sitting with us, and he was a little worried that that we were there on a Thursday, and he wasn't looking forward to the weekend because he wasn't sure if he was going to be eating over the weekend. And little things like that is what we'd seen. I mean, I remember one community we went to as well, where we visited their house, and they hated it when it rained because they would have dollar store type buckets all over the floor because the roof leaked, and leaked big time. These are, when Gino, especially after that experience, he said, we got to do something.
Yeah.
We really got to do something. If it takes one person, one family, one community at a time, we got to do something, and that's how much it affected him, that he wanted to try to, change Indigenous communities for the better, and make it more positive, for families as well. So,
Wow.
and but that's kind of what garnered a lot of respect for him in Indigenous communities, because he gave back so much.
He's given us so much and given people in different areas of life too, and that just speaks volumes of the man. Patrick, I'm interested, what did you learn most? You learned about him, you learned about some of his stories. What were your biggest takeaways from this process?
Well, I was just going to branch off what Pete said. I mean, part of what motivated Gino's that desire to bring people in.
Wow.
Pete and I highlighted the importance of his father, and Gino Odjick, who went away to work, and that influenced a lot of who Gino was as a father, which is a complicated part of the book. We were able to speak with a couple of his sons, and a couple of the mums is the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And then understanding that part, so understanding sort of how he, his family experience, learning about his grandfather who died in France killing Nazis. Like, his father was a war hero, or grandfather was a war hero, and the influence that the way that threads of history. His father ended up in residential school, which is, obviously a huge part of our national story.
Mm-hmm.
How that tied into the Odjick family, learning about basically how like I already said, how Gino became a hockey player. I mean, that was a wonderful story. And speaking with Paul Lambortolo, who was actually his first major junior coach. Bob
Right.
Hartley coached him in Hawkesbury, but he gets recruited up to Laval, and that's kind of where it all gets going there. The legacy part of the book, where we spoke to people who have impact on his, how his life has impacted others. Sandy McCarthy, obviously, who we remember as being, sort of the big tough rival, but his great friend who was involved in the journey of healing when they ran and walked and jogged and got themselves from Calgary to Vancouver in the summer of '95. Sandy lives up in the Northwest Territories now.
Nice.
And the whole reason he's there is because of the chief there, Danny Godet, who he met at the Gino Odjick golf tournament.
Wow.
At a point in his life where he was sort of looking for what to do next. And Danny said, "You're ever looking for something, give me a call." And a few years later, Sandy's driving across country trying to think about what he's going to do next, and calls up, and he ends up there and he runs the rink. It's just things like that, and learning about the threads of Gino's life and the way he spread it around, and how, as Peter said, they did all this work traveling around, meeting young people. I mean, there was this young man who appears in the book. I tracked down a guy named Stefan Friday, who runs a site called Hockey Indigenous, which is to highlight Indigenous hockey players. Stefan's a fascinating young man from a very small community on the shores of James Bay, a place that is dealing with all kinds of poverty of its own. And here he is trying, he literally says, Gino came to my community in 2002, and I learned from him how to help people and how to try to make things better for my community, for my family. And he's trying to do that now in a broader sense. And then it was just the way that, Gino, I think, Peter, you tell me, but I think Gino was humble about these things. He wasn't about him.
Yes.
But here we are, we've written a book about him, about how important he was, how broad his influence was, both small and big. And it was a fascinating exercise. As I've said, I'm sad I didn't get to know him in life better. But I'm proud of what Peter and I have been able to pull together here, and the story we've been able to tell.
Yeah, Peter, I bet he'd probably be too humble to write the book himself, but I'm glad that you guys have written it for him. And we talk about his on-ice battles, his personal health battles, but his triumphs as well, just on the ice and all these things, and in the Indigenous community, and just as a human. So what do you think is going to be, or what should you hope to be, the biggest takeaway from people who read this?
That they clearly understand who, the human being that Gino really was. And he was a very humble person in many ways. I mean, we always used to say, we always said a lot, we're two little old Indian boys who grew up on the res. And we always used to say to the youth, if we can do it, so can you. And he took that to heart. He really did. And it's what he's did after hockey. Well, even what he did while he was playing hockey, but what he did after hockey was really had made a change. I mean, we talked to many youth after that are adults now. One young lady that sent us some communication about when she became a lawyer, and she said we influenced her in becoming a lawyer. Wow. And that's what it was all about, for us. We always said our job was go into a community, touch one person. We're able to touch one person. We've done our job. We can go home. We know we touched many others, but just to make a difference. I mean, I was kind of influenced when I was young by certain people that came into our community. Gino was as well, when he had, Ted Nolan and Reggie Leech and the likes, go into the community, and, he wanted to be just like them. And he absolutely was. I mean, I think there's a lot that I want people to, for me, what the book does now is it immortalizes him.
Yeah.
That's how I really look at it, is that, he'll be forever, remembered now, from this, and a young person can pick up that book and read about him to understand him. And I thought, Patrick and I, especially Patrick, did an amazing job on presenting him in this book to, help understand him, the goods and the bads. I know
Yeah.
he was a little worried about, some of the bad things that, like I was saying, he didn't want people to judge him, differently from who he was, his persona on the ice. And, but I mean, I've always told him that that's the only way people are going to see the real you and understand the real you and want to be you.
Mhm.
So I
It's
mean,
human, right?
yeah, exactly, and I think that's kind of what I think we touched on this, throughout the book. And like I said, Patrick has done an amazing job on bringing it together,
I love that.
so that it could be understood in that fashion.
Yeah, really well said. I love how the pages of the book are sort of like the layers of an onion. You can kind of peel away and find out more about Gino Odjick. Where can people track down this book, Patrick? Because it comes out in October, but you can pre-buy it now.
Yeah, you can pre-order it
Okay.
anywhere you want, any sort of major bookseller. But yeah, October 9th, it hits the shelves, and we're really, really excited that it exists. When it arrived, it was 3 weeks ago now, Pete. I think it arrived in my in the house because I was going on talk to another media outlet about this, and I sent Pete the photo, and it was an amazing thing to hold. I'm so thankful for work. My where I work supported us. We have tons of photos in there
Cool.
from his career and his life getting around, and not just, like I said, not just on the ice, but his work in the community, the journey of healing, all these things. It was a fascinating, fun exercise, and I'm so excited for people to be able to see it.
Cannot wait. And Peter, I know that I think Gino would love like a Keith. We're recording this in early September. Would like a Kiefer Sherwood be like someone he would really love to watch these days? Because I know he still loved his Vancouver Canucks.
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, he would absolutely love Kiefer. I mean, anyone who can, bang somebody against the wall a number of times that he has, or put against the boards, Gino would love that, without a doubt. I mean, Kiefer would probably be one of his, most popular players on the Canucks right now. I mean, just his passion and his commitment. So.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to,
Please.
elaborate just quickly on something that Patrick said. When I first picked up the book, or when I first seen it, I got emotional. Honestly, I got emotional. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, here's my brother. Here's my brother here. I mean, he's going to be remembered now. And that's kind of what the emotional overwhelmed me is, he's going to be remembered, so I just wanted to share that little tidbit.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Gino, the fighting spirit of Gino Odjick. Go pre-buy it now. And when it comes out in October, make sure you're handing it out to all your friends. It's a perfect gift for any hockey fan. Peter Leech, Patrick Johnston, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you for writing this book. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Great stuff. That's been another episode of Mike Check. Of course, you can listen anytime on the CHEK Plus app or on CHEK's YouTube channel. Until we chat again.